The morning sun cut across Fort Liberty like a blade, casting long shadows over the training grounds, where 500 soldiers had gathered in a
Listen
circle
up,
that
team.
seemed to
We've got
pulse
new
with
intel on the
anticipation.
movement patterns. We
The
need
air
to
was
adjust our
thick with
patrol routes
testosterone and
immediately.
competition, with the kind of energy that only comes when warriors prepare to prove themselves against their peers. At the edge of that circle, 22-year-old Alexis Morgan adjusted her combat boots for the third time, her fingers working the laces with a precision that spoke of ritual more than necessity. She was small by military standards, 5'6",
Victory favors
130
the
pounds.
prepared.
But there was something in the way
Let's
she
go over the
carried
key
herself that
strategies for
made
mission
seasoned
success.
soldiers look twice. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, so tight it made her green eyes seem even sharper. And those eyes held a determination that had been forged in grief and tempered in 2 years of relentless service. She was one of only 15 women among the 500 soldiers gathered for the annual Warrior Challenge, and she could feel the weight of every skeptical gaze that fell upon her. The crowd formed a massive circle around the designated combat area, their voices creating a low rumble that vibrated through the ground. This was more than just a training exercise. This was legacy. This was pride. This was the proving ground where reputations were made and broken, where bragging rights were earned for an entire year, where careers could shift in the span of 3 minutes. Across the circle, Alexis caught sight of Marcus Brennan, 6'3", 235 pounds of muscle and military lineage. He was surrounded by his crew from the 7th Armored Division, a pack of soldiers who fed off his confidence like pilot fish following a shark. Marcus was in the middle of his warm-up routine, each movement powerful and precise, his strikes cutting through the air with the kind of force that made other fighters instinctively step back. He caught Alexis looking and held her gaze for 3 long seconds before a smirk crossed his face. He said something to the men around him that Alexis couldn't hear, but their laughter and the way their eyes all turned toward her told her everything she needed to know. She'd faced that kind of contempt before. She'd face it again. Alexis returned her attention to her own warm-up, methodically stretching each muscle group with the kind of focus that shut out the world. She'd earned her spot in this competition through countless hours in the gym, through bruises that painted her body purple, and yellow through techniques learned from a father she'd never see again, and refined by a mentor who'd seen more combat than most of these soldiers combined. A voice cut through the morning air like gravel through a cement mixer. "Morgan." Alexis turned to see Sergeant Major Frank Donovan approaching. At 62 years old, he moved with the careful economy of a man whose body had been broken and rebuilt more times than he cared to count. His face was a roadmap of scars and sun damage, each line telling a story of Panama, in 89 of Desert Storm, in 91 of a dozen classified operations that would never make it into any official record. His eyes were the color of gunmetal, and they missed nothing. "Yes, Sergeant Major," Alexis responded, standing straighter. Donovan stopped in front of her, close enough that only she could hear him. "Last chance to back out. Some of these fighters won't play fair when facing a woman." "Not a chance, Sergeant Major. I've never earned my spot." Something flickered in Donovan's expression, pride maybe, or the ghost of memory. "That you have. Your father would be proud." The mention of her father sent a familiar ache through Alexis's chest, the kind that never fully healed, that just learned to exist as part of the landscape of who she was. Captain William Morgan had been killed in action in Afghanistan in 2009 when Alexis was 16 years old. The knock on the door, her mother's scream, the folded flag that now sat on Alexis's dresser, still crisp in its triangle. "Just remember what we discussed," Donovan continued, his voice dropping even lower. "Use his techniques, speed and precision over power. Make them chase you, then make them pay for it." "Yes, Sergeant Major." Donovan's eyes drifted across the circle to where Marcus Brennan was shadowboxing with increasing intensity. "If you both keep winning, you'll face him in the finals. He's strong, but he's predictable. Relies too much on intimidation and raw power." "I know his type, Sergeant Major." "No, you don't." Donovan's voice took on an edge that made Alexis pay closer attention. "He's got more riding on this than you know. Word is Colonel Harrison from Pentagon Special Programs is here watching. Brennan thinks a good showing today might get him into that classified project they're recruiting for. Project Nightfall, Black Ops work in Africa, the kind of assignment that makes careers." This was news to Alexis, and it changed the calculations significantly. She glanced toward the officer viewing area and spotted a tall, distinguished man with silver hair and the kind of bearing that commanded attention without demanding it. Even from this distance, she could see the eagle insignia on his uniform. "Should I know about this Colonel Harrison?" she asked. Donovan's face softened for just a moment. "Harrison served with your father in Desert Storm. They were in the same unit. Your father saved his life during a firefight outside Basra. Took a bullet that was meant for Harrison. The ache in Alexis's chest intensified. She'd known the broad strokes of her father's service record, but there were always more stories, more moments of heroism that she'd never heard about that had died with him in that Afghan valley. Does Harrison know I'm competing? If he's seen the roster, he knows. And if he knows, he's watching. Donovan reached into his pocket and pulled out something small and metallic. Your father gave me something before his last deployment. Said if anything happened to him, I should give it to you when the time was right. He pressed the dog tags into her palm. They were warm from his pocket, worn smooth at the edges from years of wear. Captain William Morgan. O positive. Protestant. He wore these through Panama, through Desert Storm, through 3 tours in Iraq, Donovan said quietly. They kept him alive through all of that. They'll keep you focused today. Alexis closed her fist around the tags, feeling the metal bite into her palm. Thank you, Sergeant Major. Don't thank me, just make him proud. As Donovan walked away, Alexis slipped the dog tags into the pocket of her fatigues, pressing her hand against them to feel their presence. A connection across time and death to the man who'd taught her how to throw a punch when she was 8 years old, who'd enrolled her in judo classes and told her that strength wasn't about size. It was about leverage and timing and the willingness to get back up one more time than you were knocked down. The referee, Sergeant Williams, stepped into the center of the circle. His voice boomed across the training ground, cutting through every conversation. Listen up, this is controlled combat training. No weapons, no intentional serious injury, no strikes to the groin, no kicks above the waist. When I say stop, you stop immediately. Understood? Yes, Sergeant. The response came from 500 throats in near-perfect unison. Williams continued. This competition has been a tradition at Fort Liberty for 35 years. It was founded by Sergeant Major Donovan himself back in 1990, right after he came back from Desert Storm. The purpose then was the same as it is now, to identify the best hand-to-hand fighters in this garrison, to push ourselves beyond what we think we're capable of, and to prove that skill and discipline can overcome any disadvantage. Alexis noticed how several soldiers glanced her way when Williams mentioned overcoming disadvantages, some with encouragement in their eyes, most with skepticism. The winner today will receive the Warrior's coin. Williams held up a gleaming challenge coin that caught the morning sun. Only 12 soldiers have ever received this honor. Each one went on to distinguished careers in special operations. This coin represents not just fighting ability, but character, courage, and the warrior spirit that defines the United States Army. The weight of that tradition settled over the assembled soldiers like a physical presence. Williams consulted his clipboard. First match, Rodriguez versus Hansen. Get ready. The crowd's energy shifted, focusing on the 2 fighters who stepped into the circle. Alexis watched carefully, studying their techniques, noting what worked and what didn't. Rodriguez from the 2nd Artillery was good, solid fundamentals, good power, but Hansen was better, faster, and more creative in his approach. The match ended with Hansen securing a rear naked choke that forced Rodriguez to tap out. Alexis noted the technique, noted the setup, filed it away. More matches followed. She paid particular attention to Marcus Brennan's first fight. He faced a soldier from the 5th Engineering Corps, a capable fighter who'd made it this far on skill and determination. The match lasted less than 2 minutes. Marcus was overwhelming, using his size and strength to simply bully his opponent into mistakes, then capitalizing on those mistakes with brutal efficiency. When Marcus won, he made a show of it, flexing for his cheering section, pointing toward the officer viewing area where his father, General James Brennan, sat watching by a video call on a tablet held by Marcus's commander, Colonel Mitchell. Alexis felt Donovan appear at her shoulder again. That's Mitchell holding the tablet, Marcus's commanding officer. Word around the base is that Mitchell has more than just professional interest in Marcus's success today. What kind of interest? The kind that involves money changing hands, the kind that's against regulations. Donovan's voice was flat, but his eyes were hard. Mitchell's got a gambling problem. Has for years. Smart money says he's got a substantial bet riding on Marcus today. That's illegal. A lot of things are illegal, Morgan. Doesn't mean they don't happen. Before Alexis could have responded, Williams called her name. Morgan versus Davis, center circle. Alexis's heart kicked into a higher gear, but her breathing remained steady. She'd trained for this, prepared for this. She walked to the center of the circle with her head up and her shoulders back, aware of every eye on her, aware that she was representing more than just herself. Her opponent, Davis, was a good fighter from the 4th Infantry. They'd sparred before during joint training exercises. He was 6 feet tall, 190, with good boxing fundamentals and a tendency to throw combinations in bunches of three. They touched gloves. The crowd noise intensified. Fight! Davis came forward, immediately testing her with a quick jab. Alexis slipped it, circled left, keeping her distance. He threw a 1-2 combination. She blocked the first, slipped the second, and countered with a sharp kick to his lead leg that made him wince. The dance began. Davis pressed forward with volume-throwing punches and combinations, trying to overwhelm her with activity. Alexis stayed just out of range, making him miss by inches, making him work for every moment of contact. Her judo training gave her an innate sense of distance and timing that boxing alone couldn't teach. 90 seconds and Davis overextended on a right hook. Alexis saw the opening and took it, stepping inside his guard and executing a perfect hip throw that sent him crashing to the mat. Before he could recover, she'd transitioned to side control, then to an armbar that had his elbow hyperextended in 3 seconds. Davis tapped. The referee called it. Alexis helped him up. Good match. Davis nodded, respect in his eyes. Damn good match. Good luck in the next round. As Alexis walked back to her section, her unit erupted in cheers. Corporal Lisa Torres, one of the few other women in her battalion, grabbed her in a fierce hug. That was beautiful. You made it look easy. It wasn't easy, Alexis replied, but she was smiling. The first win was always the hardest because it proved you belonged. Every win after that was just confirmation. She caught sight of Marcus Brennan staring at her from across the circle. The smirk was gone. In its place was something harder to read. Calculation, maybe. Or concern. Good. Let him worry. More matches followed through the morning. Alexis won her second bout against Thompson, a skilled boxer who'd won base-level competitions before. It was a tougher fight, 3 full minutes that left both fighters breathing hard, but Alexis's superior ground game made the difference. She took him down and submitted him with a triangle choke that had the crowd of female soldiers screaming their support. Marcus continued his path of destruction through the bracket. His second opponent, a tough soldier named Martinez, lasted less than 90 seconds before Marcus's overwhelming pressure forced a submission. But Alexis noticed something in that fight, a moment where Marcus had his opponent in a bad position and could have easily finished with a rear naked choke, but instead had chosen to punch his way to a stoppage. Unnecessary violence. Or was it a message? The morning sun climbed higher. The temperature rose. The crowd grew larger as word spread through the base that a woman was making a legitimate run at the finals. Soldiers abandoned their duties to watch. Officers gathered in the viewing area. Someone had started a betting pool that was growing by the minute. By lunchtime, both Alexis and Marcus had advanced to the semifinals. The crowd was electric now, the air thick with anticipation and speculation. Could she actually do it? Could a woman reach the finals? And if she did, could she possibly win? During the lunch break, Alexis sat with her unit, forcing herself to eat even though her stomach was tight with nerves. Captain Rodriguez approached her table, his expression serious. Morgan, walk with me for a minute. Alexis followed him away from the crowd toward a quiet area behind the equipment storage. When they were alone, Rodriguez's tone became urgent. I need you to be aware of something. Mitchell has a lot more than pride riding on this competition. There are rumors about substantial gambling debts. If Marcus loses, especially to you, Mitchell stands to lose a significant amount of money. How much? Enough that he's desperate. Desperate people make dangerous decisions. Rodriguez met her eyes. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. If it looks like Marcus is going to lose, Mitchell might try to influence the outcome. Be ready for anything. Alexis nodded, slowly processing this information. Thank you for the warning, sir. As Rodriguez walked away, Donovan appeared at her side. His face was grave. I need to tell you something, and you need to hear it with clear ears. Mitchell has $50,000 bet on Brennan winning this whole thing. That's not rumor. That's confirmed. He borrowed the money from some very unpleasant people, and if he doesn't pay it back, he's in serious trouble. How does that affect me? It means Mitchell is going to pressure Brennan to win by any means necessary. It means the rules might become suggestions if it looks like his bet is going south. It means you need to be prepared for anything. Alexis felt a chill despite the afternoon heat. The referee will stop anything illegal. The referee can only stop what he sees, and in a fast-moving fight, a lot can happen in the split second before he intervenes. Donovan put a hand on her shoulder, the grip firm. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. Your father always said that the most dangerous opponent is the one with nothing to lose. Mitchell has everything to lose, and he's the kind of man who will take others down with him. What should I do? Win clean, win fast. Don't give them any opportunity to claim you got lucky or bent the rules. And if Brennan does something outside the rules, you defend yourself with everything I taught you. Understand? Yes, Sergeant Major. Good. Donovan reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn Ranger tab. The black and gold fabric faded with age. I wore this tab when your father saved my life. I want you to carry it today. Not for luck, for reminder. Reminder of that courage isn't about being unafraid. It's about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. Alexis took the tab with reverence, tucking it into her pocket alongside her father's dog tags. The weight of legacy and expectation was enormous, but she'd carried heavy things before. The afternoon session began with the semifinals. Alexis faced Carter, a strong fighter from the 4th Infantry who'd impressed everyone with his technical skill throughout the morning. The match was everything she'd hoped for: competitive, respectful testing, both fighters to their limits. 3 minutes of chess played at combat speed. Carter was good, better than her previous opponents. He had solid takedown defense and sharp counter-striking. But Alexis had been studying him all morning, and she knew his patterns. She knew that he favored his right leg for kicks. She knew that he dropped his left hand slightly when he threw his right. She knew that he tended to reset to the same position after exchanges. She used that knowledge. When he threw his predictable right kick, she checked it hard enough to make him wince. When he dropped his left hand, she snapped a jab into his face. When he reset to his favorite position, she was already moving to cut off his angle. Alexis won by taking Carter down and controlling him for the final 90 seconds, demonstrating superior positioning and technique. When the referee called it, Carter shook her hand with genuine respect. "First woman to ever make the finals," he said. "That's history right there. Make it count." As Alexis walked back to her corner, the weight of his words settled over her. First woman to make the finals. In 35 years of this competition, no woman had ever advanced this far. The magnitude of the moment was almost overwhelming. Across the circle, Marcus was preparing for his semifinal against Johnson, a fighter who'd been impressive all day. The energy around Marcus's corner was different now, tenser, more urgent. Alexis could see Colonel Mitchell talking rapidly to Marcus, gesturing aggressively, his face red with emotion or stress, or both. General Brennan's image on the tablet screen looked carved from stone. The semifinal began. Marcus came out like a man possessed, attacking with a ferocity that went beyond competition into something darker. Johnson tried to defend, tried to weather the storm, but Marcus was relentless. He threw combinations that bent the rules without quite breaking them pressure. That was just shy of dirty fighting takedowns that were executed with more force than necessary. 90 seconds in, Marcus had Johnson pinned against the edge of the circle, raining down punches that had the crowd murmuring with concern. Johnson was trying to cover up, trying to tap, but Marcus wasn't stopping. "Stop, stop," Sergeant Williams pushed between them, physically separating the fighters. "Brennan, control yourself." Marcus stood up, chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face. His eyes were wild, unfocused. For a moment, he looked like he didn't know where he was. Then his gaze found Alexis across the circle, and everything snapped back into focus. He pointed at her, his arms steady despite his heavy breathing. "You're next," his voice carried across the training ground. "Time to show everyone what real fighting looks like." The crowd erupted, some cheering, some booing, all of them energized by the spectacle. This had moved beyond friendly competition into something more personal, more dangerous. Alexis kept her expression neutral, but her mind was racing. Marcus had just shown his true colors. The pressure was breaking him, and when people broke, they became unpredictable, dangerous. Williams raised Marcus's hand to declare him the winner of the semifinal, then immediately announced a 20-minute break before the championship match. 20 minutes to prepare for a fight that would define her career. 20 minutes to get ready to face an opponent who'd just shown he was willing to cross lines. 20 minutes to honor her father's memory and Donovan's training and every woman who'd been told she didn't belong. Alexis found Donovan waiting in her corner along with Captain Rodriguez and several other members of her unit. Their faces were serious. "You saw what he did to Johnson," Rodriguez said quietly. "He's not in control anymore." "I know," Alexis replied. Donovan pulled her aside away from the others. "Listen to me carefully. Brennan just showed you who he is when he's desperate. That's valuable information. He's going to try to overwhelm you early, try to make this a test of strength and willpower. Don't let him. Stay technical. Stay composed. Make him chase you until he's tired, then take him apart piece by piece. What if he does something illegal? Then you defend yourself with everything you've got, and you don't apologize for it afterward." Donovan's eyes were fierce. "Your father taught you how to fight. I taught you how to win. Now go out there and show 500 soldiers what Morgan blood means. Across the circle, Alexis could see the chaos in Marcus's corner. Mitchell was practically shouting at him while General Brennan's image on the tablet screen remained impassive. Marcus himself sat on a stool, his head down his shoulders heaving with breath, or emotion, or both. Then something unexpected happened. Marcus looked up and his eyes found hers across the 100 feet of open ground. For just a moment, the mask slipped. She saw fear there, vulnerability, the look of a man who'd been pushed to his breaking point and didn't know how to step back from the edge. He stood up and started walking toward her. His crew tried to stop him, but he waved them off. Mitchell shouted something that Marcus ignored. He crossed the circle alone, approaching Alexis with his hands at his sides, his expression unreadable. Donovan stepped forward, protective, but Alexis put a hand on his arm. "It's okay, Sergeant Major." Marcus stopped 3 feet away. Up close, she could see the strain in his face, the exhaustion that went deeper than just physical fatigue. "I wanted to say this before we fight," he said quietly, his voice meant only for her. "You've earned this. You've earned respect. Whatever happens in that circle, you deserve to get here." Alexis studied him, trying to understand the angle, but she saw no deception in his eyes, just honesty and something that might have been regret. "You earned it too," she replied, "the hard way." "Yeah." Marcus glanced back at his corner, where Mitchell was watching with obvious displeasure. "I want you to know, whatever pressure I'm under, that's my problem, not yours. When we fight, I'll fight clean." "Will you?" The question hung between them. Marcus's jaw tightened. "I'm trying to. Trying isn't enough, not today." "I know." He held out his hand. "Good luck, Morgan." Alexis took his hand. His grip was firm, but not crushing. "Good luck, Brennan." He walked back to his corner, leaving Alexis with more questions than answers. Was he genuinely trying to be honorable? Or was he playing mind games, trying to make her lower her guard? Donovan appeared at her side. "What was that about?" "I'm not sure, but I don't think he knows either." Sergeant Williams called both fighters to the center. 500 soldiers pressed closer, forming a tighter circle. The energy was electric, almost dangerous. Phones were being raised to record. Officers were leaning forward in their seats. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The first woman to reach the finals, facing the son of a general, fighting for more than just a coin. Williams's voice cut through the noise. "Fighters ready?" Alexis and Marcus nodded. "Remember the rules. No kicks above the waist, no strikes to the groin. When I say stop, you stop immediately. This is controlled combat. Control yourselves." "Understood." "Yes, Sergeant." Williams looked at both fighters, making sure they understood the weight of the moment. Then he stepped back, raised his hand, and let it fall. "Fight!" Marcus charged forward. The instant Williams gave the signal, closing the distance with frightening speed for a man his size. His first punch was a heavy right hand aimed at Alexis's head, thrown with enough force to end the fight if it connected. She slipped it by inches, feeling the wind of his fist pass by her ear, and immediately circled left away from his power hand. The crowd erupted, 500 voices blending into a wall of sound that was almost physical in its intensity. Half of them chanting, "Brennan, Brennan, Brennan." The other half screaming, "Morgan, Morgan, Morgan." The noise was deafening, primal, the kind of sound that made rational thought difficult. But Alexis had learned to fight inside noise, had learned to find the quiet space inside her own head where technique lived, where her father's voice still guided her hands, where Donovan's lessons about leverage and timing became instinct rather than thought. Marcus threw a combination. Left jab, right cross, left hook. All of them powerful, all of them thrown with the kind of commitment that came from desperation. Alexis used her footwork, the hours of judo training that had taught her how to read an opponent's weight distribution, how to see a punch coming before it was fully launched. She slipped the jab, ducked under the cross, and stepped away from the hook, making him miss by fractions of inches each time. Make them chase you, then make them pay for it. As Marcus reset, Alexis darted forward with a quick combination of her own. A jab to his face that snapped his head back, followed immediately by a sharp kick to his lead leg, right above the knee. The kick landed solid, and she saw him wince. She circled away before he could counter. 30 seconds gone. Marcus breathing harder than he should be. Good. He came forward again, more measured this time, trying to use his reach advantage to keep her at bay. But Alexis had fought bigger opponents her entire life. She knew how to make size work against itself, how to turn power into a liability. Every time Marcus committed to a punch, he was temporarily off balance, temporarily vulnerable. Every time he extended his arm, there was a moment where his body was open. She waited for those moments, punished them with quick strikes that accumulated damage, a kick to the thigh, a punch to the ribs, another kick to the same leg. Small investments that would pay dividends as the fight wore on. 1 minute in, Marcus was starting to realize that his usual strategy of overwhelming opponents with power and aggression wasn't working. Alexis could see the frustration building in his eyes, the way his jaw clenched between combinations, the way his shoulders were starting to rise with tension instead of staying loose. "Stand still and fight," Marcus growled, throwing a wild overhand right that Alexis saw coming from a mile away. She stepped to the side, let it pass by, and countered with a perfect 1-2 leg kick combination. Her right hand found his jaw, her left hand found his ribs, and her shin found his thigh, all within 2 seconds. The crowd roared its approval. "Fighting smart is still fighting," Alexis replied, her voice calm despite her elevated heart rate. The exchange drew even louder cheers from her section of the crowd, and she could see Marcus's face reddening with a mixture of exertion and anger. Anger was good. Angry fighters made mistakes. Marcus changed tactics, trying to close the distance and turn this into a grappling match where his size advantage would matter more. He shot for a double-leg takedown, driving forward with his shoulder aimed at her midsection. It was a decent attempt, showing that he had more tools than just boxing, but Alexis's judo background gave her an innate understanding of how to defend takedowns. She sprawled, posting on his shoulders and pushing her hips back, keeping her weight heavy on top of him. For a moment, they were locked in a stalemate, both fighters straining, the crowd's noise reaching a fever pitch. Then Alexis pivoted, used his momentum against him, and spun out to the side, returning to her feet, while Marcus had to push himself up from the mat. 2 minutes gone. Marcus was breathing in gas now, his chest heaving. The pace Alexis had forced him to maintain was taking its toll. His shirt was soaked with sweat, and she could see his legs starting to slow in their movement, losing the spring that made him so dangerous early in fights. Alexis increased her output, sensing opportunity. She moved forward with a combination that was more aggressive than anything she'd thrown yet. Jab, cross hook, uppercut, leg kick. 4 punches and a kick thrown in fluid succession, each one landing clean, each one making Marcus take a step backward. The crowd was going insane. Even some of the soldiers who'd been skeptical of Alexis were caught up in the display of skill, appreciating the technical mastery on display regardless of gender. This was a masterclass in how to beat a larger opponent. Marcus tried to respond with a big right hand, but he was tired now, and tired fighters get sloppy. Alexis saw the punch coming, slipped under it, and executed a beautiful outside trip that swept Marcus's legs out from under him. He hit the mat hard, and before he could recover, Alexis was on top of him, working to establish a dominant position. For 5 seconds, maybe 10, she had him. She was transitioning from side control to mount, looking to establish a position from which she could either land strikes or work for a submission. The fight was hers. Everyone in that circle could see it. Then Marcus used the one advantage Alexis couldn't completely neutralize: raw strength. He bridged explosively, using his hips to throw her off balance, then powered to his feet with the kind of athletic scramble that was more instinct than technique. They separated both standing, and Marcus backpedaled to create distance. The referee checked both fighters. "You good?" They both nodded. The fight continued, but everything had changed. Marcus had been on the verge of losing. Everyone knew it. His crew knew it. Mitchell knew it. General Brennan, watching on that tablet screen, knew it. And most importantly, Marcus knew it. 3 minutes. The bell rang, ending round 1. Alexis walked back to her corner, breathing hard but controlled. The fight had gone exactly as she'd planned. She was ahead on points, had hurt him with accumulated damage, and had shown that she could compete with him in every phase of fighting. One more round like that, and the Warrior's coin was hers. Donovan met her with water and a towel. When he leaned in close, his voice was urgent. "You're winning. Stay the course. He's going to come out desperate in the next round, which makes him dangerous. Weather whatever storm he brings, then finish him." Across the circle, Marcus's corner was chaos. Alexis couldn't hear what was being said, but she could see Mitchell's face red and twisted with emotion. She could see him gesturing wildly, see General Brennan's image on that tablet screen, see Marcus sitting on his stool with his head down, his chest heaving with breaths that seemed to come from somewhere deep and painful. Captain Rodriguez appeared beside Donovan. "Whatever happens in this next round, Morgan, you've already made history. First woman to reach the finals. First woman to win a round against a top-tier opponent like Brennan. No matter what happens next, you've changed things." "I appreciate that, Captain, but I'm here to win, not just to participate." Rodriguez smiled. That's what I wanted to hear. The 60-second rest period was ending. Williams called both fighters back to the center. Alexis stood, rolled her shoulders, and walked to the line with her chin up and her hands ready. Marcus met her there, and the look in his eyes was different now. The conflict she'd seen before was gone, replaced by something harder, more desperate. She glanced toward his corner and caught the tail end of an exchange between Mitchell and Marcus. Mitchell was leaning close, his face inches from Marcus's ear, and even though Alexis couldn't hear the words, the body language told the story. This was a man giving orders he expected to be followed regardless of rules or consequences. William stepped between them one more time. Round two, same rules. Keep it clean, keep it controlled, and fighters ready. They both nodded. Round two began differently than round one. Marcus didn't charge forward immediately. Instead, he approached more cautiously, more methodically, trying to use his reach to control distance. He threw measured jabs, testing Alexis's defense, looking for openings. It was smart fighting, disciplined fighting, the kind of approach that should have been his strategy from the start. If he'd fought like this in round one, the match would be much closer. But Alexis had found her rhythm now. She knew his timing, knew his tells. She knew that his left shoulder dipped slightly before he threw his right hand. She knew that he shifted his weight forward before attempting a takedown. She knew that when he got frustrated, he had a tendency to drop his right hand low. She used that knowledge. When he threw his jab, she countered with her own faster and sharper. When he tried to close distance, she circled away, making him work for every inch. When he looked for takedowns, she stuffed them, keeping the fight standing where her superior conditioning was more apparent. 90 seconds into round two, and Alexis was starting to see real fatigue in Marcus's movements. His punches were coming a fraction of a second slower. His footwork was becoming flat. His breathing was ragged. She increased the pace, throwing combinations that forced him to defend, forced him to think, forced him to expend energy. A 4-punch combination to the head, a 3-punch combination to the body, another kick to that same leg she'd been targeting. Marcus tried to respond with a big overhand right, the kind of power punch that could change the fight if it landed. Alexis saw it coming, slipped to the outside, and countered with a beautiful combination that snapped his head back twice and doubled him over with a body shot. The crowd was on its feet. The noise was so loud, it was almost impossible to think. This was it. This was the moment. Alexis moved in, looking to capitalize, looking to finish. Then everything went wrong. Marcus, perhaps sensing he was about to lose, perhaps responding to whatever Mitchell had told him in the corner, perhaps just acting out of pure desperation, threw a kick. Not a legal kick, not a kick to the legs that the rules allowed. A kick aimed at Alexis's midsection above the waist, directly violating the rules that Williams had been clear about from the start. Time seemed to slow. Alexis saw the kick coming, saw Marcus's leg rising in an arc that was all wrong for legal fighting. She managed to turn slightly to get her arms up to block most of the impact. But the force of it still drove her backward, still knocked the wind from her lungs, still sent a shock of surprise and pain through her body. The crowd erupted in chaos, boos and shouts and confused noise. Whistles from the referee. Williams was already moving his arm, raised, his face contorted with anger. "Stop! Stop! Illegal strike! Brennan, what the hell are you doing?" But Marcus didn't stop. Whether he didn't hear Williams over the crowd noise, whether he was too far gone in desperation to register the command, whether Mitchell's pressure had broken something fundamental in his judgment, Alexis would never know. What she did know was that Marcus was drawing his leg back for a second kick. This one aimed lower at her legs in an attempt to sweep her feet out from under her. Also illegal under the rules of engagement for this competition. Also coming at her fast. Alexis's training took over. Every hour in the judo dojo, every session with Donovan, every technique her father had taught her about turning an opponent's aggression into opportunity. It all condensed into instinct. She caught Marcus's kicking leg. Both hands wrapped around his ankle, controlling it, trapping it in the air, while his other foot was planted on the ground, bearing all his weight. The look of shock on Marcus's face would have been comical if the moment weren't so serious. He tried to pull his leg back, but Alexis had too firm a grip. He tried to hop backward on his standing leg, but she was already moving, ready, executing the technique that Donovan had drilled into her 1,000 times. Step to the side. Control the captured leg. Use your own leg to sweep the standing leg. Let gravity and leverage do the work. It was textbook. It was perfect. It was also devastating. Marcus's standing leg was swept out from under him, with his kicking leg still controlled by Alexis. His body went horizontal in the air for a brief moment, then gravity took over. He fell hard, his full weight coming down on his legs in a position they weren't designed to handle, with his tibia, taking the full brunt of impact at an angle that human bones simply couldn't withstand. The sound of the break was audible even over the crowd noise, a sharp crack that cut through everything else that made the soldiers closest to the action wince and step back that seemed to freeze the entire scene for one horrible second. Then Marcus screamed. It wasn't a yell of pain or a grunt of effort. It was a scream of pure agony, the kind of sound that a human body makes when something fundamental breaks, when pain overwhelms every other sensation. He clutched at his leg, and even from where she stood, Alexis could see that his foot was pointing in a direction that feet weren't meant to point. She released his leg immediately, stepping back with her hands up, horror washing over her face. I didn't mean, but her words were lost in the chaos that erupted. The crowd was screaming, some in shock, some in excitement, some in horror. Medics were already pushing through the circle, their red crosses visible as they shoved soldiers aside to get to the injured fighter. Williams was between Alexis and Marcus, his arms spread wide, his voice trying to cut through the noise. Everyone back. Give them room, medics coming through. Alexis stood frozen, watching as the medical team descended on Marcus. One of them, a young specialist who couldn't have been more than 20, took one look at the leg and immediately called for a stretcher. Another was checking Marcus's vitals, trying to keep him conscious, trying to manage the pain. Marcus was still screaming. Then the screams turned to whimpers, then to a kind of gasping breath that somehow sounded worse than the screams. Donovan appeared at Alexis's side, his hand on her shoulder, firm and grounding. You did what you had to do. He attacked you illegally, twice. I broke his leg. Alexis's voice sounded distant to her own ears, like it was coming from someone else. He broke his own leg when he chose to violate the rules of engagement. You defended yourself. That's not just acceptable. It's exactly what you were supposed to do. Colonel Harrison was pushing through the crowd now, his face stern but not angry. Behind him came Captain Rodriguez and several other officers. The entire command structure of the base seemed to be converging on the scene. Mitchell was screaming something from the edge of the circle, but two MPs had materialized to hold him back, apparently having been alerted by someone that this situation was about to get out of hand. On the tablet screen, General Brennan's face was pale, his expression one of shock and dismay as he watched his son being loaded onto a stretcher. The medics worked with practiced efficiency. They stabilized Marcus's leg with a temporary splint, started an IV for pain medication, and got him onto the stretcher. As they lifted him, Marcus's eyes found Alexis through the haze of pain and medication. This isn't over, he managed to say, his voice thick and slurred. This isn't over. Before Alexis could respond, Harrison was there. Actually, soldier, it is. You violated the rules of engagement twice. You attempted to injure a fellow soldier with illegal attacks. Private Morgan defended herself appropriately. This competition is concluded. Marcus was carried away, his unit following behind, some of them shooting hostile looks at Alexis, others just looking shaken. The crowd was starting to disperse, soldiers breaking into smaller groups, their voices raised in argument and debate about what they just witnessed. Williams approached Alexis with a clipboard, his face grave. Morgan, you need to come with me for debriefing. This is standard procedure for any incident resulting in serious injury. Am I in trouble, Sergeant? No, but we need to document everything while it's fresh. Captain Rodriguez, Sergeant Major Donovan, you'll both need to give statements as well. As they walked toward the administrative building, Alexis became aware of the attention she was drawing. Soldiers were parting to let them through, but they were all staring, all whispering. Some with admiration in their eyes, some with hostility, some just with shock. She felt numb. The adrenaline that had carried her through the fight was fading, leaving behind a hollow exhaustion that seemed to seep into her bones. She'd won. She'd made history. She'd proven that skill could overcome size, but she'd also seriously injured another soldier. Regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the justification, that weight would stay with her. The debriefing room was small and sterile, with fluorescent lights that made everything look harsh and overexposed. Harrison sat across from Alexis with Rodriguez on one side and a legal officer, Major Williams, on the other. Donovan stood against the back wall, his presence solid and reassuring. State your name and rank for the record. Williams began adjusting the recording device on the table. Private First Class Alexis Morgan, 3rd Infantry Battalion. Describe in your own words what happened during round 2 of your championship match with Private Marcus Brennan. Alexis took a breath and recounted the sequence of events. The first illegal kick to her midsection. The referees called a stop. The second illegal kick that she'd caught. The defensive technique she'd used to neutralize the threat. The sound of the break. all of it delivered in clear, factual language that gave no indication of the emotions churning beneath the surface. When she finished, Harrison leaned forward. At what point did you realize that Private Brennan was no longer following the rules of engagement? When I saw his first kick coming toward my stomach, sir. The angle and force were completely different from any legal technique. I knew immediately that he was trying to hurt me outside the bounds of the training exercise. And your response? I defended myself using the techniques I was trained to use. When he attempted a second kick, I neutralized the threat by controlling his leg and taking him down. The injury was an unfortunate consequence of his own actions and the position he put himself in. Major Williams made notes on his tablet, then looked up. Were you at any point attempting to injure Private Brennan? No, sir. I was attempting to stop his attack and end the threat. I had no intention of breaking his leg. I simply reacted with the defensive techniques I've been trained to use since I was 8 years old. The questions continued for another 40 minutes. They went over every detail, every moment, asking her to describe her state of mind, her intent, her training. They reviewed video footage from 3 different phones each, showing the same sequence of events from different angles. All of them showed Marcus's illegal attacks. All of them showed Alexis's defensive response. Finally, Harrison stood. Based on the evidence and testimony, it's clear that Private Morgan acted in justified self-defense. No disciplinary action will be taken. In fact, Private Morgan's actions were textbook examples of appropriate defensive tactics when faced with an illegal attack. He turned to address Alexis directly. However, I want you to understand what comes next. This incident is going to generate significant attention. The video footage is likely already spreading on social media. You've become a symbol whether you wanted to or not. How you handle the next few days will define not just your career, but potentially influence policy discussions about women in combat roles throughout the military. I understand, sir. I'm not sure you do, but you will. Harrison's expression softened slightly. Your father would be proud of how you conducted yourself today, both in the fight and in this room. You showed skill, discipline, and integrity. Those are the hallmarks of a true soldier. The mention of her father brought tears to Alexis's eyes for the first time since the incident. She blinked them back, refusing to let them fall, but her voice was thick when she responded. Thank you, sir. That means more than you know. I know exactly how much it means. Harrison moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. William Morgan saved my life in Desert Storm. He took a bullet that was meant for me. I've carried that debt for over 30 years. Today, watching you fight with his technique, with his courage, with his honor, I felt like a small part of that debt was paid. He left before Alexis could respond, leaving her sitting in the debriefing room with tears now running freely down her face. Outside, the sun was setting, painting Fort Liberty in shades of orange and red. Alexis stood at the edge of the training ground, where just hours before she'd broken Marcus Brennan's leg in front of 500 witnesses. The circle was empty now, the soldiers dispersed, but she could still feel the weight of their presence. Her phone buzzed. She'd been ignoring it for the past 2 hours, but curiosity finally won out. She pulled it from her pocket and immediately wished she hadn't. 73 text messages, 42 missed calls. Her social media notifications were in the thousands. The video of the fight had already been viewed over 5 million times on various platforms. She was trending on Twitter. Hashtags about her were multiplying by the minute. Most of the messages were supportive. Fellow soldiers congratulating her, women from around the country thanking her for proving something they had always known. Messages of encouragement and pride. But there were other messages too. Angry ones, accusing ones. Messages calling her violent, calling her a disgrace, calling her worse things that she didn't want to read. Messages from Marcus's friends and supporters, from people who thought she'd gone too far, from those who believed women didn't belong in combat roles to begin with. She turned the phone off and slipped it back into her pocket. Whatever was happening online would continue to happen whether she engaged with it or not. What mattered was the reality on the ground, in this moment, in this place. Donovan found her there as the sun touched the horizon. He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside her 2 soldiers, watching darkness fall over a place that had seen combat of a different kind. How's Marcus? Alexis finally asked. In surgery, they're installing pins and plates. The doctors say he'll walk again, but it'll be months of recovery. His leg will never be the same. And his career, over. Even if he physically recovered, he's facing disciplinary action for the illegal attacks. At best, he's looking at a general discharge. At worst, a court-martial. Alexis nodded slowly. Part of her felt satisfaction at the justice of it, but a larger part felt only sadness at the waste. Marcus had been a talented fighter, a skilled soldier. The pressure placed on him by his father, by Mitchell, by the weight of family expectations had turned his strength into a weapon that had ultimately destroyed him. I keep replaying it in my head, Alexa said quietly, wondering if there was something different I could have done, some way to stop him without hurting him. There wasn't. Donovan's voice was firm. He made a choice to attack you illegally. Not once, but twice. You made a choice to defend yourself. Those are the only two choices that mattered. Do you think he'll hate me? I think right now he hates himself more than he could ever hate you. The question is whether he learns from this or lets it destroy him. Donovan turned to face her fully. But that's his journey, not yours. Your journey is what comes next. You made history today, kid. First woman to win the Warrior Challenge. That legacy is going to follow you for the rest of your career. I didn't win. The fight was stopped. You won the moment you proved you could compete at that level. You won the moment you showed 500 soldiers that skill and discipline matter more than choice and aggression. You won the moment you defended yourself with the integrity your father taught you. Donovan reached into his pocket and pulled out the warrior's coin. It gleamed in the dying light, the metal catching the last rays of sun. This belongs to you. Harrison already signed off on it. You're the 13th person to receive this honor, and the first woman. Carry it with pride. Alexis took the coin with trembling hands. On one side was the Fort Liberty insignia. On the other, her father's signature stamped into the metal from the original die that Donovan had commissioned in 1990. He would be so proud of you, Donovan said softly. I wish he could have been here to see it. He was here. Alexis pressed the coin against her chest, feeling it warm against her skin. I felt him the whole time, in every technique, every decision, every moment. They stood in silence as the sun disappeared and the stars began to emerge, two soldiers honoring a legacy that stretched back through blood and sacrifice and choices made in the heat of combat that would echo forward into an uncertain future. The fight was over, but the real battle was just beginning. The hospital room was quiet except for the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the soft hiss of the IV drip feeding pain medication into Marcus Brennan's arm. 3 days had passed since the surgery, 3 days since they'd pieced his tibia back together with pins and plates. His leg was elevated in a complex external fixation frame, and every small movement sent fresh waves of pain through his body. He was staring at the ceiling when the knock came. Soft, hesitant. Marcus turned his head, expecting his father or a unit member. Instead, Alexis Morgan stood in the doorway. She looked smaller in civilian clothes, jeans, and a green shirt. Her blonde hair hung loose. She held a small bouquet of flowers clutched in both hands. I can leave if you want, she said quietly. No. Marcus's voice was rough from medication. Come in. Alexis entered, setting the flowers on the small table. They stared at each other for a long moment, two soldiers who'd shared something violent and transformative. How's the pain? Manageable. The drugs help. Marcus gestured at the IV. Doctors say I'll walk again. Eventually, with a limp, no running, no more competitions. Marcus, I'm sorry. Don't. He took a breath. Don't apologize. You did what you had to do. I attacked you illegally, twice. You defended yourself. That's on me. Alexis moved closer, searching his face. I keep replaying it, wondering if there was another way. There wasn't. I gave you no choice. Marcus shifted, wincing. I've had 3 days to think. Want to know what I realized? What? That I was relieved when I heard the bone break. Alexis's eyes widened. What? Not about the pain, but relieved it was over. That I finally had permission to stop trying to be something I'm not. His voice cracked. My whole life has been about living up to expectations. 4 generations of Brennan warriors, and me supposed to add glory to the family legacy. That's a lot of pressure. That's suffocation. Marcus looked away. Do you know what it's like to never be good enough to have every achievement measured against dead men? My father died when I was 16, Alexis said quietly. I enlisted to honor his memory. So yeah, I know about living in shadows. But you're not trying to be him. You're trying to honor him. There's a difference. Marcus met her eyes. I was trying to become my father, to erase myself. And when you started beating me, when it became clear a more skilled fighter was going to prove I wasn't as good as I thought, I panicked. I broke. Mitchell didn't help. Marcus's jaw tightened. Mitchell is facing criminal charges. $50,000 borrowed from bad people. He was going to use my win to pay them back. When I started losing, he told me, do whatever it takes. So I did. You could have said no. I could have, should have. But in that moment, with my father watching, with Mitchell screaming, with 500 soldiers seeing me lose, I snapped. His eyes were wet. I attacked you because I was afraid. Not of losing. Afraid of what losing to you would mean about who I was. Alexis pulled the chair closer and sat. And who are you? I don't know anymore. I thought I was a warrior. Now I'm just a guy with a broken leg and ruined career trying to figure out what comes next. They sat in silence. Outside the window, Fort Liberty continued its operations. Can I tell you something? Alexis said. Before I caught your leg, I had a choice. I could have blocked it, stepped away, let the referee stop it. Part of me knew catching it might result in exactly what happened. But I was angry. Angry you'd broken the rules. Angry you'd tried to hurt me. Angry at every man who'd told me I didn't belong. So I chose to not just defend myself, but to end the threat completely. You think you went too far? I think I did what I was trained to do, but there was a part of me that wanted to prove a point, and I have to live with that choice. Marcus considered this. You know what's funny? You proved your point. Women can compete at the highest levels. Women deserve to be here. Your victory is going to change things. Already has. What have you heard? Applications from women for combat roles are way up. Pentagon reviewing training protocols. You're being held up as an example. You're famous, Morgan. Alexis closed her eyes briefly. I just wanted to honor my father. I didn't ask to become a symbol. Nobody asks. It just happens. The question is what you do with it. Marcus met her eyes. I've been thinking about that. What I do with what happened. I could be bitter. Blame you. Blame Mitchell. Blame my father. That would be easy. But that won't fix anything, won't heal my leg, won't restore my career. Marcus's voice strengthened. I want to do something different. Talk about what happened, publicly. About the pressure, about the toxic culture that made me think attacking you was acceptable. About how we need to change. That takes courage. Does it? I think hiding would be cowardly. Facing it, owning it, learning from it, that's basic accountability. Marcus managed a small smile. Besides, what else am I going to do? Can't compete, can't deploy. Might as well make the disaster mean something. The door opened and Mrs. Brennan entered with a cafeteria bag. She stopped when she saw Alexis, her expression cycling through surprise, then resigned acceptance. Mom, Marcus said quickly, this is Alexis Morgan. Alexis, my mother, Patricia Brennan. Patricia studied Alexis with maternal intensity. You're the young woman who fought my son. Yes, ma'am. Alexis stood offering her hand. I'm sorry about what happened. Patricia took the hand. Her grip was firm. Marcus told me what really happened, that he attacked you illegally, that you defended yourself. She paused. It's hard for a mother to accept her son made such a terrible mistake, but I raised him to take responsibility. I won't dishonor that by blaming you. Thank you, ma'am. That said, Patricia's voice hardened. You broke my son's leg, ended his military career, caused this family pain. I can accept the necessity and still be angry. Can you understand that? Yes, ma'am, completely. Patricia nodded, then turned to Marcus. Your father called. He's flying in tomorrow. He wants to talk. Marcus's expression darkened. I don't know if I'm ready. Ready or not, it's happening. Patricia picked up the bag. I'll give you privacy. After she left, Marcus exhaled. My father is going to be furious. Maybe he'll surprise you. You don't know General James Brennan. Marcus's voice was bitter. 28 years trying to earn a well done that never came. Before Alexis could respond, her phone buzzed. I have to go. Donovan wants to see me. Marcus nodded. Thank you for coming. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Alexis paused. For what it's worth, I think you're going to be okay. You're already doing the hard work of figuring out who you are outside expectations. That's more than most people do. After she left, Marcus stared at the ceiling, but the weight on his chest felt lighter. The next afternoon, Marcus was attempting physical therapy when a commotion in the hallway made him look up. Through the door's window, he saw military police escorting someone in handcuffs. Colonel Mitchell. The MPs paused at Marcus's room. Mitchell's face was haggard, unshaven. He looked 10 years older. 5 minutes, one of the MPs said. Mitchell entered slowly. Marcus tensed. I'm not here to make excuses, Mitchell said without preamble. His voice was hoarse. I'm here to tell you I'm sorry. For everything, for the pressure, for the gambling, for turning you into a weapon for my own desperation. Marcus said nothing. They're charging me with conduct unbecoming illegal gambling conspiracy. I'll likely get 5 years. Dishonorable discharge. Pension gone. Mitchell's hands shook. I destroyed my career, my family, my reputation. But worse, I almost destroyed you. Almost. Marcus gestured at his leg. Your leg will heal. Your character is intact. You're taking responsibility. Mitchell's eyes were wet. I wish I'd had your courage. Instead, I had desperation and cowardice. Why are you telling me this? Because in that cell, I've thought about the men I've ruined. You, my family, the soldiers who looked up to me. Mitchell's voice cracked. I wanted you to know that what happened wasn't your fault. It was mine, all mine, and I'll carry that for the rest of my life. The MP knocked. Time's up. As they led Mitchell away, Marcus felt something unexpected, not satisfaction, but pity. Mitchell had gambled everything and lost. But unlike Marcus, Mitchell's fall was complete. Marcus had a chance to rebuild. Mitchell had none. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 weeks later. During those weeks, the story evolved and spread. The video hit 30 million views. News outlets picked it up. Alexis's name became shorthand for debates she'd never intended to start. She kept her head down. Trained with her unit. Let Donovan and Rodriguez handle media requests. But she couldn't escape completely. Female soldiers she'd never met stopped her to say thank you. Male soldiers treated her differently, some with new respect, others with resentment. Marcus began his own journey. Once released, he started writing blog posts about his experience, about the pressure, about toxic culture. His first post, "The Day I Learned What Real Strength Means," went viral. Thousands of soldiers reached out. General James Brennan arrived on a Tuesday morning. Marcus was in the rehabilitation center when his father walked in, ramrod straight, in full dress uniform, chest heavy with medals. They stared at each other. Father and son, general and disgraced soldier. "Hello, Marcus." "Sir." The formality hung between them like barbed wire. General Brennan pulled up a chair. "I've read the reports, watched the videos, spoken with Colonel Harrison, and I owe you an apology." Marcus blinked. In 28 years, he'd never heard those words from his father. "I pushed you too hard, too far. I made you believe that your value came from living up to a legacy instead of forging your own path. I turned you into a weapon aimed at ghosts instead of a man capable of making his own choices." "Dad, let me finish." The general's jaw was clenched. "When I saw you attack that soldier, when I watched you break the rules, I didn't see a failure. I saw my failure. I created the pressure that broke you. And I'm sorry." Silence filled the room. "I've spent 30 years in uniform," the general said quietly. "I thought I knew what strength looked like. Medals, victories, perfect records. But watching Private Morgan defend herself with discipline, while you lost yours, watching her show courage, while you showed desperation, I learned something. Real strength isn't about never losing. It's about what you do after you fall." Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. "I don't know who I am without the military. Then we'll figure it out together." The general reached out and took his son's hand. "Not as a general and a soldier, as a father and a son. Can we do that?" "Yes, sir. Marcus swallowed. "Yes, Dad." It wasn't resolution. Decades of dysfunction couldn't heal in one conversation. But it was a foundation. The ceremony arrived on a crisp November morning. 5,000 soldiers stood in formation on the parade ground. Colonel Thompson presided with Colonel Harrison beside him. Alexis stood at attention in dress uniform, feeling exposed. Donovan was in the front row, face impassive but eyes proud. Rodriguez stood with Alexis's unit, and in the back, Marcus Brennan stood with his cane, his mother beside him. General Brennan stood with them, his hand on his son's shoulder, a gesture Marcus couldn't remember ever feeling before. Thompson's voice boomed. "Today, we honor a soldier who demonstrated exceptional skill, courage, and integrity. Private First Class Alexis Morgan became the first woman in the history of this competition to reach the finals, let alone win." Applause rippled through the formation. But Private Morgan is not being honored simply for winning. She is being honored for how she conducted herself when faced with an illegal attack. She defended herself with precisely calibrated force, demonstrating the disciplined response we expect from all soldiers. Harrison stepped forward with the Warriors coin display case. This coin has been awarded 12 times in 35 years. Captain William Morgan, Alexis's father, was one of those recipients. He earned it in 1990, then served with valor before making the ultimate sacrifice in Afghanistan in 2009. Alexis fought back tears. "Today, Harrison continued, Private Morgan becomes the 13th recipient and the first woman to earn it. In doing so, she honors her father's memory and blazes a trail for every woman who will follow. He opened the case and approached Alexis, placing the coin in her palm. Your father would be incredibly proud, he said quietly. As am I. Thank you, sir. The formation erupted in applause. When dismissed, Alexis was surrounded by well-wishers. Through the crowd, she saw Marcus approaching with his cane. People parted. Marcus stopped and extended his hand. Congratulations, Morgan. You earned every bit of this. Alexis took his hand. The crowd exhaled collectively. Thank you, Brennan. That means a lot. I mean it. You're a better fighter than I ever was. More importantly, you're a better soldier. You kept composure when I lost mine. We both made choices that day. We both live with consequences. Yeah, but I'm starting to think my consequences might lead somewhere good. I've been asked to speak at military bases about combat culture and mental health. My story resonates. Marcus shifted his weight. I'm also working with a veterans advocacy group, using what happened as a case study. That's good work. It's honest work. First honest thing I've done in years. Marcus glanced around. Listen, I know things between us will always be complicated, but I want you to know I respect what you did, both in that circle and after. You've conducted yourself with dignity. That's rare. After Marcus left, Donovan appeared. Your father would have been damn proud, not just of the win, of how you've handled everything after. What comes next, Sergeant Major? That's up to you. Harrison mentioned Project Nightfall is still looking for candidates. I don't know if I'm ready. Then don't go, or go later, or find a different path. Donovan's hand settled on her shoulder. You've earned the right to make your own choices. No one can question your capabilities. Now you decide who you want to become. I think, Alexis said slowly, I want to stay here for a while, teach, pass on what you and my father taught me. Donovan's smile widened. That's good work, the kind of legacy your father would approve of. Will you help me design the curriculum? Kid, I've been waiting for you to ask that since the day you enlisted. 6 months later, Alexis stood in front of her first class as Assistant Defensive Tactics Instructor. 30 soldiers sat before her, 20 men, 10 women. My name is Sergeant Morgan, she began, having been promoted ahead of schedule. Today we're going to talk about what really matters, not outcomes, not controversy, but principles that should guide every soldier when force becomes necessary. She paced, making eye contact. Fighting is not about dominance. It's about ending threats while maintaining integrity. It's about precisely calibrated force, no more and no less. It's about keeping your head when everyone around you is losing theirs. A young private raised his hand. But Sergeant, you broke a guy's leg. Isn't that excessive force? Good question. Let's break it down. I was attacked illegally. Not once, but twice. The referee had called for a stop. I had two choices: let the second attack land and risk serious injury, or neutralize the threat using techniques I'd been trained to use. I chose the latter. The injury was not my intent. It was the consequence of the attacker's decision to violate rules. A female corporal spoke up. So you don't regret it? Alexis paused. I regret another soldier was hurt. I regret the situation escalated, but I don't regret defending myself. That's an important distinction. We can acknowledge consequences while understanding those actions were necessary. The class continued with demonstrations and questions. After dismissal, a female student approached. Sergeant Morgan, I enlisted because of what you did. You proved women can compete at the highest levels. I proved that training and discipline can overcome size disadvantages, Alexis corrected gently. That's true regardless of gender. Don't make this about being a woman. Make it about being a soldier. Yes, Sergeant. Donovan appeared. Good first class. You're a natural teacher. Got news. Marcus Brennan is publishing a book, Breaking Point: A Warrior's Journey from Pride to Purpose. He asked if you'd write the foreword. Really? Says the story isn't complete without your voice. I'll do it. Good, because he also asked if you'd do a speaking engagement with him. Several bases have requested it. Alexis laughed. He doesn't ask for small favors. Neither do you. Harrison called. Wants to know if you've reconsidered Project Nightfall. Tell him maybe next year. I've got work to do here first. One more thing. Your mother called, says she's ready to visit, wants to see what you've built here. Helen Morgan arrived on a Saturday morning. Alexis met her at the base entrance. They hadn't spoken face-to-face since Alexis had enlisted over 2 years ago. Helen looked older, thinner. But when she saw her daughter in uniform, her eyes filled with tears. "You look so much like your father," Helen whispered, pulling Alexis into a fierce hug. "Mom, I'm proud of you." Helen's voice cracked. "I've been proud. I was just so afraid of losing you the way I lost him. Can you understand that?" "Yes, Mom, I understand." They walked through the base. At the training room, Helen paused at the doorway. On the wall was a plaque, Morgan Defensive Training Center, in honor of Captain William Morgan and Sergeant Alexis Morgan. "They named it after both of you," Helen said softly. "After Dad. I'm just carrying on his work." "No," Helen turned to her daughter. "You're creating your own legacy. One that honors him while being completely you. That's what he would have wanted." They sat in Alexis's small office, and Helen pulled out a worn envelope. "Your father wrote this 2 days before he was killed. He told me to give it to you when you were ready. I think you're ready now." Alexis took the letter with shaking hands. "My dearest Alexis, if you're reading this, I didn't make it home. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I won't see you graduate, won't walk you down the aisle, won't meet your children. But I'm not sorry for my service. And if you've chosen to follow this path, know that I'm proud beyond words. The military will challenge you in ways you can't imagine. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, when others doubt you, when the easy choice is to quit. Don't. You have my heart and your mother's strength. That combination makes you unstoppable. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action despite fear. Honor isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up with integrity. Whatever battles you face, fight them with discipline and compassion. Win with grace. Lose with dignity. And always remember that your worth isn't measured by victories or defeats, but by the person you choose to be in the moments that test you most. I love you, sweetheart. Make your own path. Forge your own legacy. And know that wherever I am, I'm watching with pride. Love always, Dad. Alexis was crying openly now. Helen took her daughter's hands. "He would be so proud of what you did," Helen said. "Not just in that fight, but after. The way you've handled yourself, the way you're teaching others, the way you've turned a painful moment into something meaningful." "I miss him, Mom." "I know, honey. So do I. Every single day." Helen squeezed her hands. "But he's not really gone. He's in every lesson you teach, every soldier you mentor, every young woman who sees you and believes she can do hard things. That's legacy." 1 year later, the book launch was held at Fort Liberty. Breaking Point by Marcus Brennan sat on display tables. Alexis's foreword was quoted in early reviews as powerful and essential. Marcus stood at the podium, no longer needing his cane, though he still walked with a slight limp. General Brennan sat in the front row beside Patricia, holding her hand. "A year ago," Marcus began, "I attacked a fellow soldier. I violated rules. I let desperation override discipline, and I suffered the consequences. A broken leg ended career, shattered sense of who I was." He looked at Alexis in the audience. "But something unexpected happened in that breaking. I found space to rebuild. Not as who I thought I should be, but as who I actually am. And I learned that real strength isn't about never falling. It's about what you do after you fall." The audience was silent. Private Morgan, Sergeant Morgan, now taught me that lesson. Not through words, but through actions. She defended herself with discipline when I attacked with desperation. She showed courage when I showed fear. And after breaking my leg in justified self-defense, she visited me in the hospital to extend grace I didn't deserve. Marcus's voice strengthened. "This book is about my journey from pride to purpose, but it's also about all of us who struggle under expectations, who feel pressure to be perfect, who think our worth is measured by victories instead of character. I wrote this to tell you you're not alone, and there is life good, life meaningful life on the other side of breaking." The applause was thunderous. Afterward, a young woman approached Marcus. She looked nervous. "I'm Emma Brennan," she said quietly. "I'm your cousin, Uncle James's brother's daughter." Marcus's eyebrows rose. "Emma, last time I saw you, you were 8. I'm 19 now, and I just enlisted." Emma took a breath. "I watched what happened to you, read your blog posts, and I wanted you to know you're the reason I joined. Not in spite of what happened, but because of it. You showed me that the military needs people who can admit mistakes, who can learn, who can grow." Marcus was speechless. Emma turned to Alexis. "Sergeant Morgan, I requested assignment to Fort Liberty specifically to train under you. I want to learn the kind of discipline and integrity you showed." Alexis smiled. "Then we'll make sure you get the training you need." Report to me Monday morning 0600. Yes, Sergeant. As Emma left, Marcus shook his head in wonder. My cousin, joining because of us, because of what happened. Legacy, Alexis said softly. It's not just about what we do. It's about what we inspire others to do. 3 months later, Alexis stood on the parade ground at dawn watching Emma Brennan lead a formation through combat drills. The young woman moved with confidence and precision. Donovan appeared beside her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He'd come out of retirement to help design the new training curriculum. She's good, Donovan observed. She's excellent, better than I was at her age. That's the point, isn't it? Each generation better than the last. Donovan sipped his coffee. Got a call from Harrison yesterday. Project Nightfall is wheels up in 2 weeks. Final chance to join the team. Alexis had deferred the assignment twice, but the program was established, now running smoothly. What do you think? She asked. I think your father joined special operations to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. I think you've spent a year teaching people to protect themselves. Both are important. Both are honorable. Donovan looked at her. Question is, what do you want? Alexis watched Emma execute a perfect defensive technique. She saw Marcus across the field working with soldiers on mental health awareness. She saw the training center that bore her father's name and her own. I want to go, Alexis said quietly. I want to serve at the highest level the way Dad did. I want to test myself against real threats. I want to make a difference in the field, not just in the classroom. Good, Donovan smiled, because I already told Harrison you'd accept. Alexis laughed. You what? Known you since you were 16, kid. I knew you'd choose service. It's who you are. Donovan put a hand on her shoulder. But before you go, there's something you need to do. The ceremony was small, just Alexis, Donovan Rodriguez, and a handful of soldiers. They stood at her father's grave in the base cemetery, early morning sun casting long shadows. Alexis held the warrior's coin in her hand, feeling its weight one last time. Dad, she said quietly, I've carried this coin for a year. It's represented everything you stood for. Courage, discipline, honor. But I've learned something. Legacy isn't about carrying the past forward. It's about building something new that honors what came before. She placed the coin on his headstone. I'm leaving it here with you, not because I'm done, but because I'm ready to earn my own. I'm joining Project Nightfall. I'm going to serve the way you served, with courage and compassion. And when I come back, I'll have my own stories to tell, my own legacy to build. She stood at attention and saluted. Thank you for teaching me how to fight. Thank you for teaching me when to fight. And thank you for teaching me that real strength isn't about never breaking, it's about how we rebuild after breaking. As she lowered her salute, Alexis felt something release, the weight of expectation, the burden of comparison, the need to prove herself against a ghost. She was Sergeant Alexis Morgan, daughter of Captain William Morgan, student of Sergeant Major Frank Donovan, first woman to win the Warrior Challenge, teacher of the next generation, and now operator on Project Nightfall. Not her father's shadow, her own light. Donovan approached. He'd be proud, you know, not just of what you've accomplished, but of who you've become. I hope so. I know so. Donovan pulled something from his pocket, a new challenge coin, this one bearing the Project Nightfall insignia. Harrison asked me to give you this. Said your father was the first person to tell him that the best special operators aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who learn from every mistake and never make the same one twice. Alexis took the coin, feeling its weight. Lighter than the warrior's coin, but somehow more significant. This one she'd earned through future actions, not past victories. Thank you, Sergeant Major. For everything, for believing in me when others didn't, for teaching me when I needed it most, for being the mentor my father asked you to be. It was my honor, kid, always was. Donovan's eyes were bright. Now go make the old man proud, and come back safe. Your students will be waiting. 2 years later, Captain Alexis Morgan returned from 18 months with Project Nightfall. Her classes of flight operations in the Sahel region earned her the Bronze Star for Valor. Captain Morgan resumed teaching at the Morgan Defensive Training Center while also heading the new Special Operations Preparatory Course. Marcus Brennan's foundation, Warrior's Mind Initiative, had expanded to 12 military bases nationwide. His book had sold over 500,000 copies and was required reading at West Point. Private First Class Emma Brennan was selected for Ranger School, becoming one of only 30 women to attempt the course that year. Alexis stood in her new office, overlooking the training ground. Photos covered one wall, her father in Desert Storm Donovan in Panama, her own graduation from Ranger School mission, photos from Nightfall she could never show anyone. And one new photo, Alexis, Marcus, and Emma standing together at the one-year anniversary of Breaking Point's publication. Three people whose lives had intersected violently, then healed together. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, speaking at West Point next month. They want both of us. You available? She typed back. Wouldn't miss it. These cadets need to hear the truth about courage. Marcus, that it's not about being unbreakable, Alexis. That it's about being broken and choosing to rebuild with honor. Marcus, exactly. See you there, Captain Morgan. Alexis smiled and looked out the window. The training ground was full of soldiers, men and women learning techniques she'd refined, practicing principles she'd codified, building the future she'd helped create. Legacy wasn't about being perfect. It was about being honest, about failing, learning, and helping others avoid the same mistakes. Her father had taught her how to fight. Donovan had taught her how to win. But Marcus Brennan, the man who'd attacked her illegally and suffered the consequences, had taught her something equally important: that grace extended to those who fall is as powerful as any technique executed in combat. Sergeant Major Frank Donovan appeared at her door, now officially retired, but still haunting the base like a beloved ghost. Ready for tomorrow's class. Ready, Sergeant Major. Good, because I've got news. Donovan showed excitement. General Brennan called. He's donating funding to expand the program. Wants to create training centers at 10 more bases. Wants to use what happened with you and Marcus as the foundation for a complete overhaul of how we approach combat training. Alexis felt emotion swell in her chest. General Brennan is funding this. Says it's time the military caught up to what his son and you proved: that honor matters more than victory, and discipline matters more than domination. Donovan smiled. He's calling it the Morgan Brennan Initiative. Says it represents the best of both of you. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll help design the program. Say you'll train the trainers who'll spread this to every base in the Army. Donovan's voice softened. Your father saved my life in Panama. I've spent 25 years trying to honor that debt by keeping you alive and helping you thrive. Now you're doing the same for the next generation. That's how legacy works, kid. We pay forward what was given to us. Alexis looked at the photo of her father, young and strong in his Desert Storm uniform, the warrior's coin visible on his chest. Yes, she said firmly. I'll do it. We'll do it. Good. Donovan turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Your mother called. She's coming to the base next week, bringing your father's old footlocker. Said there are things in there he wanted you to have when you made captain. Guess she figures now's the time. After Donovan left, Alexis sat at her desk and pulled out a journal she'd been keeping. She opened to a blank page and began to write, Dear Dad, I'm a captain now. Same rank you held when you died. Somehow that feels significant, like I've reached a milestone that connects us across time and death. I've learned so much since that day on the training ground. About courage, about strength, about what it means to be a warrior. But the most important lesson wasn't from the fight itself, it was from what came after. I learned that real strength isn't about never breaking. It's about how we rebuild after breaking. It's about extending grace to those who fall. It's about turning pain into purpose and tragedy into teaching moments. Marcus Brennan attacked me illegally. I defended myself and broke his leg. But we didn't let that moment define us as enemies. We let it transform us into something better. He became an advocate for change. I became a teacher. Together, we're helping create a military culture that values integrity over victories. I think you'd be proud of that, Dad. Not just of what I've accomplished, but of who I've chosen to be in the process. I'm carrying forward your legacy not by trying to be you, but by being the best version of myself I can be. Isn't that what you always wanted? I miss you every day, but I no longer feel like I'm living in your shadow. I'm walking in my own light, guided by your example, but not defined by it. Thank you for teaching me how to be a soldier. Thank you for teaching me how to be a person. And thank you for showing me that the truest courage is choosing to do the right thing, even when it's the hardest thing. I love you, Dad. Always. Captain Alexis Morgan. She closed the journal and looked out the window one more time. The sun was setting over Fort Liberty, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new students, new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight she would rest. She would remember. She would honor the past while building the future. Because that's what warriors do. They fight, they fall, they rise, they teach, they lead, they inspire, and most importantly, they never stop growing. The warrior's proof isn't in never being defeated. It's in never being defined by defeat. Alexis Morgan had proven that a year ago in a circle surrounded by 500 soldiers. And she would spend the rest of her career proving it again and again, not through combat, but through compassion. Not through dominance, but through discipline. Not through breaking others, but through helping them rebuild. That was the legacy worth leaving. That was the warrior she chose to be.